Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, also host of RT's talk show Crosstalk. Well, Alexei Navalny is in the news again. In fact, he's rarely out of the news. He makes sure that he's always in the news. And
Or other people make sure that he's in the news.
exactly, his latest exploit is his claim that he had surreptitiously telephoned an FSB agent disguising himself as a member of the Russian National Security Council, and this supposed Russian FSB agent told him all about, on the telephone, all about his attempted poisoning. Navalny has the recording. The recording has been played by the Western media, who are, of course, all extremely gleeful that the Russians have been exposed not only as nasty, vicious poisoners, but incompetent poisoners and deeply stupid people at that, in that they're taken in by a prank call. Now, anyone with a critical, jaundiced eye would be a little skeptical of all of this, particularly as it is unlikely that somebody who is working for the Russian FSB would happily spill the beans when somebody just telephones him and say, yeah, well, we were all engaged in this poisoning. So there is that aspect.
And we could kind of fill it in. The guy actually was explaining the timeline and the amount of the poison, almost kind of like, his visit to a grocery store, okay, in that kind of tone.
In that kind of thing, exactly. A very light-hearted tone. And what seems very striking about all of this is that Navalny is now more and more becoming exposed as a creature of the Western intelligence services, which means that he has no serious prospects, if he ever even had any, of becoming a political figure within Russia, which means that his role now is essentially as an agent provocateur and as a tool of the Western intelligence services. So we should be very wary of anything emanating from Navalny or any of his cronies. Okay, Peter, what's your take?
Well, it shows I think the kind of juvenile approach Navalny probably thinks about Western audiences and Western politicians, that they'll bite at anything, and it really shows the naivete and lack of seriousness from Western media. I mean, I saw a clip, I think it was from one of the major cable stations, and she was just gleeful. It's once in a lifetime. I'm paraphrasing here. You rarely come across it. This is just amazing here. It's just that, if I had been doing an interview with that reporter, I'd say, do you think it's possible it was a crank call? I mean, what evidence do you have that it is a legitimate telephone call? Of course, that never seriously crosses their mind, because what I believe this invented narrative from Navalny and his handlers is to generate an additional narrative about what Russia is like, which of course goes along with the caricature. I mean, I always say that, when I look at these stories here, you have to convince me one or the other. It's either Keystone Cops or James Bond. They can't exist simultaneously, side by side. One has to give, okay? And also, and this is what you get with the reporting, is that the people that help generate this story are convinced it can work because, well, anything works, doesn't it? Okay, and that shows how the lack of sophistication and seriousness this narrative is all about. Because anyone that has a curious mind would say, well, why would, I mean, if the intelligence services are so embedded and so clandestine and all-seeing, how is it they kind of screwed up and a guy made a phone call to a guy that he's supposed to have targeted? I mean, that's just, it's beyond the point of seriousness here. And I think it is just, number one, to keep the story going. Okay. We also know that MI6 and the CIA met with the officials in Germany shortly after the incident. I mean, what
That
evidence
was a
did they
story in
have?
the New York Times, which I think we should point this out, is that this was blurted out in the New York Times that after Navalny was shipped into Germany, the CIA and MI6 flew to Germany and briefed the
Brief.
German investigators about the poisoning because apparently they had very specialized and detailed knowledge of the poisoning. And after that, the Germans came up with their finding that yes, it was all done by the Russians. They poisoned Navalny with Novichok. So we now have the intelligence services of the British and the Americans absolutely embedded within this story.
And of course, the Germans, from what we understand, parroted their findings. Okay. I wonder if the Germans asked, "Oh, how did you find it?" We can't tell you that. That's classified. Okay. All right. There we go. But it's very interesting is that the Western intelligence services, if they were so knowledgeable about this, why did they try to thwart it? Okay. I mean, like tip them off or something like that. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And another reason, so I don't forget, it is also during this transition period is to keep the Russian front, as it were, in the public eye, because well, the Chinese front is screaming to be heard, and as long as you have one of these cloak and dagger stories, that sucks up the oxygen and turns the attention away from other stories in the news. So it serves its purpose, but the more they go down this path, the more they look silly. I mean, and then you have these people like Bellingcat as reinforcing narratives as if they're some kind of independent organization, which they are not. Their paymasters are Western governments and NATO. Exactly. And they have even been criticized by some of their sponsors of being sloppy and reckless, and their misinformation, disinformation comes to light. Okay, I mean these people, they'll do stuff for the highest bidder. Okay, that's what they do. All right. I mean it's very reminiscent of NED, the National Institute for Democracy, is that under the Reagan administration, the CIA outsourced its overt, public operations to NED. And so Bellingcat is also a very convenient organization for the intelligence agencies to have Bellingcat come forward. We have discovered, it's been reported, we are investigative. No, they just get it, and then they can make some kind of public statement, and then that saves the intelligence services in the West from not breaking classification. So what they do is they give it to someone else, they put it into the media, and then they can respond to the information that they gave Bellingcat purposely to be put into the public.
No, that's exactly right.
Oh, sir.
That's right. That's exactly right. So Bellingcat is used as a tool for laundering intelligence, and they're always described in the media as open sources. Now, one always assumes open sources means it's something that's available that we can all look at, and it's it's on Google or on somewhere. So when they say open sources, it's not open sources. They're getting the stuff, telephone recordings, wiretaps that they can't possibly be getting from open sources. So it's basically it's funneled by the Western intelligence services, who then turn around and say, look, hey, the media, independent media are reporting this. It's not us, it's independent media. It's a little like the Steele dossier, when the FBI went and got the Pfizer warrant. They said, hey, well, look, it's not just this Christopher Steele. Look, there's a story in Yahoo saying exactly the same thing. Yeah, but the story in Yahoo all came from Christopher Steele.
So every time that happens, it reminds me
trick that these intelligence services.
Every time that happens, I think of Gomer Pyle. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Okay. And the interesting thing too is that Bellingcat, they have obsessive interest in Russia and Syria. Have you noticed? So not other things. No, just these are the things that they're obsessed with. Okay. I suppose those are the only open source things they have access to. Okay. I used very many words, and you used one, and you were more correct in laundering. This is what they do. It's laundering.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's right. Now, what is also notable is that when Putin, in his annual press conference about 10 days ago, admitted that Navalny had been under surveillance. I mean, he said it was under surveillance because he has contact with Western intelligence. I mean, it's generally what countries do. If they something they have, they have suspicious contacts, he's under surveillance. Not doesn't mean poisoning, but he's kept under surveillance. So that was one thing, and of course the other thing that Putin pointed out is that uh, with the Navalny case, as with the Skripals, the Russians are accused of something, but they're not able ever to defend themselves because they're never presented with the forensic evidence against them. So it's like, they really are in this sort of Kafkaesque situation. You're accused of something, you ask to see the evidence on which the accusation is based. We can't disclose it. They turn around to the Germans and say, well, can we see your findings about the Novichok? No, we've given them over to the OPCW. So then we go to the OPCW and they said, no, you got to go to the Germans. So that's it. So the Russians are supposed to investigate and punish somebody or other without any information being provided to them. So it's an absolutely ridiculous situation.
Well, I mean, the part about surveillance. Ask Eric Swalwell. Yes, he was under surveillance because he was in cahoots with what is believed to be a Chinese spy. Okay?
Exactly. Yeah.
No, let me make it very clear, okay? I mean, this is the cold, sober reality of it. I mean, if you're a citizen of a country and you're cavorting with foreign intelligence agencies to overthrow the existing legal order of your country, yeah, you're going to be watched, okay? Anywhere in the world, in the United States, in Russia, in China, in Iran, in Israel, everywhere else here, okay? So that's what the intelligence community is supposed to do. That's part of their mandate, all right? So why would anyone be surprised by that? I don't know, okay?
Right. No, that's exactly right. But then, you're supposed to believe that not only do they poison Navalny, but they keep failing at it. You keep trying to poison him and keep failing. And so this was basic now 3 attempts at poisoning. And amazing. I mean, as you said, it's like they're the Keystone Cops. They keep poisoning. Well, what should we do now? Hey, let's try Novichok because it worked so well in the case of the Skripals.
You know what we got to do? We got to get the Skripals together and get Navalny together and ask them to compare notes. Okay, what was your experience with Novichok? Okay, I'm listening, and maybe I can add to your story. This is utterly ridiculous. Okay, utterly ridiculous. And as far as the poisoning thing, I mean, this is actually harkening back to the Cold War, and it has a familiarity to it. And poisoning obviously is a scary thing because it can be deadly, terribly deadly. Okay, in this case, it's not so deadly. It's kind of like the coronavirus. Okay, I mean, it certainly affects certain groups of people, elderly people and people with preconditions, okay? But I guess they just can't find the right person to expose Novichok to actually get the job done, okay?
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know, George. I mean, there's so many ways you can kill someone. Why do they keep falling back on this one is a mystery to me.
The interesting thing is what you said about the Cold War is that the cases where we knew about poisoning during the Cold War, they were always very successful. There was the case of that Bulgarian dissident Markov, who was in London.
That was the umbrella man, right?
The umbrella, yes. Then of course there was Bandera himself, who was assassinated in Munich. No one even knew he had been assassinated because they just thought that he just became ill. It was subsequently that the guy who actually did it, Stashinsky, disclosed that he had actually fired prussic acid into his face, and that's kind of instant death. So they just thought that Bandera died of a heart attack. So in fact, it was actually disclosed. That's how you do assassination, particularly when it's a government who's able to put a lot of resources into assassination operations. You don't mess around with the deadliest nerve agent ever known to man, but which always seems to fail, and everybody seems to recover fully in no time at all.
Well, I mean, the reception of it here is this, that, this is this, I mean, are these real professionals in Western intelligence agents? I mean, are we really the professional people that come up with these ridiculous stories that nobody here believes?
Right.
And they make it very clear, I mean, you're making a claim, please show us the evidence, and that's where the dialogue can begin, okay? But if you don't show any evidence, that means you're not interested in it, okay? You're not interested in resolving this. You're only interested in making accusations, which, because you will not interact with this, they become fact in the minds of Western publics, okay? It's a one-way street, okay? And all it does is it is to continue to keep relations bad, all right? And then I'm not surprised with the incoming administration, is that they want to keep things at a boiling point. And of course, you can't underestimate, George, the necessity to keep rallying NATO countries against the Russian bear. Okay, you have to keep that tempo up. Okay.
Yes. Yes. No, that's exactly right. And that's really now the function of Navalny. He has no political future in Russia. It's just all a matter of his being made use of by Western governments and by the Western media, who always report him as being Putin's most formidable opponent. The man Putin is sitting there trembling about what Navalny is going to do.
And, let me give you an example so everyone can kind of put it in perspective. It's kind of like, when Lyndon LaRouche was still alive. Okay, he just died recently, I think.
Yeah, I think Mr. Yes. Yeah.
But let me give you the example here. This would be as if the Chinese, Russian, Iranian, Syrian media, if they really want to know what's going on in America, they go to Lyndon LaRouche, and Lyndon LaRouche will give them the lay of the land here. Right. And Lyndon LaRouche had more followers, obviously, than Navalny. Okay, but Lyndon LaRouche was just a fringe character in American politics. The vast majority of Americans had no idea who he was. Okay. And so, it would be as if, the Russian press agency, instantly, let's give Lyndon LaRouche a call. What's going on in Washington? And he would give his spiel, and they say, this is the lay of the land here. It's like, no, that's the opinion of a fringe character.
Right. No, that's exactly right. Now, your Lyndon LaRouche analogy is absolutely right. I was thinking of maybe somebody like Bill Maher. If Bill Maher was constantly appearing on Russian media and say, well, Bill Maher, who actually is a very
he can actually be funny a little bit.
Be funny, yeah. No, I think that's right. But we're taking him. I mean, the guy is ridiculous. He's a clown who's kind of entertaining, but he has no following. I mean, it's just people just find him amusing, but he has no political support. But Navalny is invariably presented as having a following, even though you can look at a polling done by not government agencies, but a respectable polling organization. He's always down at about 1 or 2%, way behind Zhirinovsky, way behind Zyuganov. He's not in any way any kind of a figure with any following. And yet again, over and over, the Western media present him to the gullible Western public that he is the leader of the opposition in Russia. And again, it just shows you the abysmal quality of the reporting about Russia because it's so misleading for the Western public.
If anyone wants to know what public opinion is in Russia, there are a lot of official state-funded polling agencies, but there's one that's called Levada. Levada. And the founder of it, he died a number of years ago, but it was highly respected here in Russia and abroad. And it would give public opinion ratings for politicians. And those are the ones, the state of the economy. I always went to Levada. I looked at the other ones, but I always went to Levada because I had a great trust in it. And actually, he got, the trust is cushioned by Levada's opposition to Putin and to the people around him. I mean, and he was very public about it. And that gave him an extra credentials in the eyes of a lot of people there. And when I look at the agency's polling of it, it strikes me pretty much on mark when I look around with people that I know. So look at the Levada polling agency, and that's and Navalny will be like, he doesn't make the list. Okay, I'm sorry, he doesn't.
No, that's right. Neither he nor Kasparov. I mean, they just, these are all just creations of the Western governments and Western media
Well,
who
yeah, I'll tell you, Kasparov, I can remember it was during the Pussy Riot trial, and he was there protesting and with a lot of other people, and he got arrested, and they put him in the paddy wagon. They drove him to the end of the street. They opened up the door, and they said, "Go home to your wife. Go home."
No, I think that's right. I mean, if Navalny's future role is he will be an agent provocateur. He will stage all sorts of events, be covered in the Western media, and they're just more and more fodder for the Western propaganda mill, which is, oh my God, Putin's dictatorship is horrific. Navalny's been arrested yet again.
Yeah, but the problem is here. See, this you've really hit the nail on the head here. The problem is here is that Navalny, as a private individual in public, if some harm does come to him, anywhere everyone knows the authorities are going to be blamed, and so that is what the danger is. Navalny, by Putin's admission, is not only being watched because he's dealing with foreign elements that want to sow chaos and change the current order here, but also there could be a lot of other people that, if Navalny is pissed off, and this is a perfect way, they're perfect cover for them, okay? So they're surveilling him and actually protecting him at the same time, which is a very weird assignment to have here, because someone like Navalny wants to keep himself in the news because that's his purpose in life, because his purpose in public life in Russia is almost non-existent.
Right. No, that's exactly right. Well, we shall be maintaining our usual laser-like focus on the activities of Navalny and, of course, everything else. Thank you very much, Peter. And remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.